Welcome to the CEN show, where we present the voice of the community. The Community Education Network.com is a platform to aid the effort of self and collective improvement. I am Rasaki Maskani. Today, I would like to introduce our host and new team member, Brother Mooco. He will also host next week's show. Welcome to the team, Brother Mooco. Thank you for joining us. You got the floor, brother.
Hello, family. What's going on?
Jamie, finally got it.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I guess I'll just jump right into it. I thought it was going to be an introduction, but I guess there's none needed, But what we're going to talk about tonight, or what I would like to have a discussion about, is religion/spirituality. And I want to first start this off. I don't know how many people was here at the broadcast that y'all had with Mr. Bobby. I know Dr. Armin was here and Scott Rashaki was here, but and a few others. But I posed a question to everyone about the topic of nature and something that nature shows us. And that something was forgiveness. And at the end of this, or a little bit before the end of this program, I'll, ask a few people, if any, their thoughts on it, and if they came up with an answer of, does nature show us forgiveness? So, second, I want to start by saying this is going to be not like your traditional discussion, because it's not going to be a lot of back and forth. And the reason for that is to eliminate confusion. So I'm going to say that as far as me and everyone else, I would like to ask, but as far as me, I'm going to do this. I would like everybody, even though the topic is religion/spirituality, I would like everybody to leave religion at the door when we're having a discussion about anything, but particularly right now, leave religion at the door. Even though that's part of the topic, I'm gonna explain why. The reason why is because when you're having a conversation about what we're having right now, and particularly spirituality does not have room for belief, okay? And belief is simply something you do not know. If I were to say, Brother Mooco believes something, the only thing that solidifies or makes my belief a belief is because I do not know what it is that I believe. So if you could tell, and I know a lot of you probably can tell, because I can tell that a lot of you are codified, I pay attention to words really closely, and words that we use, especially when you're talking about a topic such as spirituality and religion. So we're going to get a little deeper into that, but as far to move on, I want to say that thirdly, I'm going to move real slow, okay? And the reason for that is because it's a lot of information to unpack. Crazily, it's not something that you'd never heard before. everything that I'm going to speak about tonight, you probably heard it before. I don't know if you thought about it the way that I'm going to bring it tonight, but I'm sure you probably heard it before. But I'm going to move real slow because these topics and this system that we exist in, which I'm talking about racism, white supremacy, it breeds off confusion. So even when we are having a conversation that we have been brought up to think that is constructive, our conversations aren't really constructive because they get emotional. Emotions do not think, okay? If you're emotional about something, meaning if you're angry about it, check this, even or overly happy about something, emotions do not think. Secondly, we're going to stay away from statements when we interact with each other. Just in this conversation. And with all that being said, I think we could start the discussion now. I just want to kind of leave those ground rules because this topic can tend to get emotional and a lot of feelings can come up, especially when you're talking about something like religion. But I guess what I'm gonna start off with is the meaning of these two words. One thing that I tend to trust about us humans is that the first thing that we must pay attention to, and I heard Brother Henry mention this, we must pay attention to nature. Why, Brother Mooco? Because we are of nature. Everything in this society, everything that we are born into, not just you, me too. This includes me too. Everything that we are born into, okay, from the beginning is totally against nature. Why am I bringing up nature? I'm bringing up nature because nature shows us things, but more importantly, nature doesn't show us certain things. Those things sometimes are more important than the things that they show us, that nature shows us. But that first thing we must understand is that paying attention to nature strictly because of the system of racism, white supremacy that exists before we even existed, okay? When we came into it, we have to fully understand it. Because if you don't understand it, words like religion, words like spirituality, words like our, people, all these words become misconstrued. And when they become misconstrued, they create confusion amongst the people who are supposed to be observing these things. So the first thing, knowing that religion is first a strong belief, no matter whether you're Islamic, if you're Christian, if you're Buddhist, it's a strong belief backed up by a lot of action, meaning, first of all, it's a strong belief. Let's tackle that. A belief, something you don't know, okay? Our ancestors never discussed things that, they never discussed belief. And the reason why is because we have everything here already in nature. And we have these things called intelligencies. Now, these intelligencies that I'm speaking of, fingers, hands, got 2 eyes, we got 2 nostrils, 2 ears, got 2 hands, 2 feet. We only got 1 mouth. Observing nature, it takes a lot of listening, it takes a lot of looking, and it takes a lot of knowing. That's what this nose is, those 2 nostrils. But the more important part that I'm trying to tackle here is to have a proper observance of something. You have to be listening, and you have to be looking if you have eyes to see. But the one thing that it doesn't require is a lot of talking. And that's where unpacking this the way that I'm unpacking it tonight is so critical, but it's a discussion that has to be had, particularly amongst Black people. And the reason why is because this is something that's hindering us very, very, very deeply. And at a time like this, religion is the last thing that we need to start any type of confusion or continue any type of confusion. So with that being said, spirituality has nothing to do with religion. And the reason why is spirituality has everything to do with nature and what nature shows us. Religion doesn't have anything to do with nature. Actually, religion is against everything that is natural. Reason being, the creation story itself in any religious platform does not coincide with nature. And what I mean by that is if we look at nature, if we look outside your window right now, if you're privy to a window right now, you'll see a tree. Nature doesn't show 2 trees being in existence, just 1 tree for 1 tree. Nor does it show every leaf on the tree being identical. But what nature does show is that it shows many trees. All of them are, or every last one of them are different. Even trees that are, you can have 2 pine trees side by side and they are totally, totally not identical. Each and every leaf on the tree is different. That's something that nature shows us. But even in this, when we're born into this existence, we don't pay attention to that. We're not even taught to pay attention to that. Now, this is something that our ancestors already had answers to. And we're going to get into that too. But a lot of these things have been erased from our bloodlines from the simple action, from one simple action. And that action that I'm speaking about is the mixing of our bloodlines. Most of us have an idea of what a bloodline is. I'm not going to ask anybody or everyone what they think a bloodline is, because I'm definitely assuming that you guys are taking notes and at the end you'll have questions. But we're not taught what the significance of a bloodline is, or what a destiny line is. And when you think about the word destiny, you know, a lot of people, I used to hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm in control of my own destiny. You know, I'm the caller of my own destiny. But the thing is, when you say a word like spirituality and you associate it with with something that's not something that is not knowing, something that is a belief, something that you cannot understand, or not understand, but something that you cannot know, what you actually start is a process of lying to yourself. Now, when some people will call that a mental impairment, I'm not going to say and act like I never told a lie, but I can say that it is some sort of a mental impairment. I don't think you have to be a doctor to notice that. But when I think my dad used to tell me, you know, when you keep doing the same thing over and over and you expect a different result, you know, that's a mental impairment, you know, because if you keep doing the same thing and you're getting the wrong result, if you don't change something up, you're going to get the same result every time. So when I brought up the point of observing and paying attention to nature, those things are so important, because when you're not paying attention to them, you can be lied to and told anything about them. In other words, if you weren't taught about what nature is, then I could tell you that nature is an apple in a jar that's plastic, and you would believe, or that's what you would know as nature. That's what you would call nature, until you experience or got some type of logics saying to you, okay, if this is a piece of plastic, how can it be something called nature? You know, that's called logic, when you make sense of something. And when you make sense of something, you don't have to really go too far to make them connect. You know, if I want to hold hands, in other words, if I want to hold hands with another human being, I just reach out and grab their hand. But if a human being didn't have hands and it was something that I just made up, I would have to go through a whole list of actions and trickery to make you believe that I have something called a hand and I'm holding someone else that has that same thing that we don't even know what it is. So in saying that, when we're speaking about anything in a system that we're born into, you first have to know what the system is and how it works. Because if you don't know, just like Nellie Fuller Jr. says, everything you do know will confuse you. And that confusion will start arguments, it'll start emotion, it'll rev up emotions, it'll get both parties making statements, a lot of statements being thrown at each other, but the one thing that it will not do is get questions asked and you won't get answers. So paying attention to nature is where we get our answers from about anything that is spiritual. Beliefs are, just like I said before, beliefs are qualified by what you don't know. And if you're paying attention to nature and you start recognizing things that nature is showing you, the difference between those two things is when you're paying attention to what nature is showing you, you no longer have to believe it. Really strange when I started paying attention to nature, but I started paying attention to nature and seeing that nature nature shows us a lot of things that it does not do that we do. And those things that I paid attention to, I'm gonna point out to you, one I've already pointed out to you, which is forgiveness. In every instance in my personal life and in every social occasion where I've seen forgiveness, it's always ended up in a bad or unusually peculiar situation or ending that was either tacky or did not solve any issue or the problem at hand. And all I ask is just pay attention closely or just think real deeply about any time that you have practiced that one thing that nature does not show. One of the other things that I've realized about nature is nature does not show us love. I believe in being mixed up or sidetracked by religion, we have been taken off of our spiritual duties. Of course, just the word spirit alone is a description of something that's unseen. But the evidence of spirit or the word spirituality is right here talking to you. So if I'm sitting right here talking to you, you definitely don't have no room to believe it. You know, I keep using that word because I don't use it a lot, but I keep using it because I'm hoping that for me using it in the way that I'm using it, I hope all of you, but I hope most of you see how redundant it even sounds. I keep throwing nature in there because, one, we are people of nature, so we exist in nature. Nature does not exist in us. Another thing that we have mixed up is time. We don't have time. Time has us. And what I simply mean by those two statements I just made is I want us to give Dr. Amin Ra 2 free weeks of unexclosed, unadulterated, pure, uncut, raw time, where would I go to get it? Where is it produced? How can I give you something called time? Simple explanation, I can't. So that is evidence that I don't have time. You don't have time. We don't have time. Time has us. Just a lot of a lot of these simple misnomers that we have not paid attention to, and this is by plan. You know, I don't want you to think that this is our natural way of being. It's not. This is something this is a whole plan that has been pushed on us. We have been taught and indoctrinated not to pay attention. We have been taught, indoctrinated to be against anything natural soon as we come out the womb. Now, you need to know about racism, white supremacy, because racism, white supremacy is the system in this existence that controls all of the areas that we participate in. People activity, same thing. So if that is the system, and I'm not bringing up this system, the only reason this system has any mention in this conversation about religion / spirituality is because the system, it controls it and every system attached to it, or I would like to say tongue and grooved into it, that's connected to it. And if you don't know about that system, there's no way you can begin to even be straight on what a thing called religion is and what a thing called spirituality is. You'll have no idea that they're totally different. One doesn't have anything to do with the other, no matter. I mean, look, my grandmother, whom I love very dearly, my great-grandmother, who I love very, very dearly. If someone would have brought me told me 20 years ago, man, what your grandmother taught you, that shit was wrong. It was dead wrong. Of course I would have got emotional. Of course I would have got offended. My favorite teacher, master teacher, whoever, whatever, if someone would have insulted them, of course I would have got emotional. And I get that, which is why we're going so slow right now. But when I said in the beginning of the show to leave religion at the door, what I also meant to say, well, I think I did say something about emotions. That's the reason why I was saying that, because the time that we're in right now, and just because of this, the way the system is designed and the way it's being, the way the system is being ran and what we're born into and what controls all of the areas that we interact. And the reason why that system is important is because to unpack it, you need to know the meanings of these diversionary words. When I say, or when I speak about spirituality, and when you do know what racism, white supremacy is, when you start to pay attention to nature, you'll understand that racism, white supremacy is the diversion to what we're all being robbed of. And what we're all being robbed of is spirituality. We're being robbed of our spirituality. Why do I say that? For anyone that practices, for anyone that has a strong belief and back it up with a lot of action, and that belief that you believe in, have you ever known or seen who, and I'm being very careful with this, who or what it is that you were told that created you? Most people will say no. Some people may say yeah. My answer is no. Whether it be Allah, whether it be Jehovah, whether it be Jesus, I've never seen or known any of those individuals, not Muhammad, none of them. But what I will say is I don't know what creation looks like either. And I don't think any of you know what creation looks like. And the reason why I say that, and I'm pretty sure, I'm about 99% sure that none of you know what creation looks like. And the reason why we don't know what creation looks like is because we aren't creators. We copy. Even me, I'm a master copier. You're master copiers. You don't create. See, creating something is not, see, I wrote these words, I wrote this outline before we started, you know, I wrote this outline, but I didn't create this. The letters that I used, I'll even take it even deeper than that. The pen that I used to write these words, this pen was already here. The ink was already made. The words were already here before me. I just manage them. And that's what we do. But if you are tricked or confused into believing that you create something. See all those words that I use? If you notice all those words that I use, I've been keying on those words since the beginning of this conversation. The first one was believe. But just to go on, if you think or believe that you can create something, creation is this. Right now, I have nothing in my hands. Now, if I created something, if I say I wanted to create, say something simple as a mothball, that means I would have nothing, and I would have to say, here's a mothball from nothing. That's called creating. Having nothing and then creating something from nothing. We have never, ever done that. Never, ever done that. I've never seen any human that has been born into this existence ever do that. So the evidence shows me that we don't create, we're copiers. Now, even down to giving, even down to birth or sex. You know, all these things are copied. We copy these actions and, you know, the act of reproduction. That's what I was getting at. I'm sorry. Some people would say or argue the fact, well, I mean, me and my wife created my child. No, we didn't create anything. Even then, in reproducing, we don't create. Creation takes place in the woman's womb, and she can't even she doesn't even create. Because she can't do it by herself. But when we get into doing things that, when we get into doing actions that perpetuate confusion, one being belief or believing, we start to do something that's very critical. We stop using logic, and we stop putting value in knowing anything. And when you stop putting value on knowing anything, then it's easy to confuse you about anything. And the reason why this is so critical, so critical right now, is because a lot of people are doing something that we all been doing, well, probably since our existence, but it's really important to our spirituality. A lot of people are dying. One thing that I'm looking forward to. But the reasons that I'm looking forward to it, and the reasons why one might be afraid of it, two totally different reasons. But the one reason I can tell you why one may be afraid of something like what I just suggested, like dying, is because they're confused by it. And again, even the act of dying is very important to your spirituality, very important to your spirituality. But right now, we have a serious, I don't even want to call it war, but we have a really, really serious spiritual war going on right now. And our ancestors need us more than ever. And what I mean by that, because we need our ancestors too. We just don't realize how much we need our ancestors. And I'm not going to get deep into it tonight because of how slow I'm going. And I hope I didn't lose anybody, but we're not going to get into the details of that tonight. We will get into the details of that on the next show, the details of the importance of knowing your mission, your spiritual mission. Because even though we're spirits trapped in a body right now, when you are released from the confines of these bodies, you have to know certain things. The ones you leave behind have to do certain things in order for your spirit to transcend. Okay? To become what's called an ancestor, a word a lot of us probably use very, very loosely and have no real definition or understanding of the definition of what it is. I heard Brother Henry on this platform when Mr. Bobby was on here talking about religion, and he mentioned the word netter. And that just made my ears go up. And I almost fell out my chair when I heard him say it. But it definitely made me brave enough to even have this conversation tonight, because it made me brave enough to have this conversation tonight, and it gave me confidence, because for the first time, I didn't have to initiate it, and I heard somebody say one of the most important words, one of the most important Madu words to me in life, I think. So with saying all of the stuff that I said tonight, how much time we got, brother Rashidi?
We usually go no more than about 2 hours. It's up to you. You're the host tonight. You know, just as if we can hang, you know.
Well,
so you got the floor. You know, you
42.
do your
Okay,
thing.
so we 42 minutes in, so I still got some time. Thanks, brother Rashidi. So the next part of this conversation that I touched on earlier, that I said we would get into, or that I would get into a lot deeper, is emotions. You know, I have a company called Be More Codified, and just like nearly Fuller, I like a lot of his suggestions. I too try to live the most codified way that I possibly can. The evidence of any time that I've ever gotten emotional in a conversation, it always ended with me not knowing more than what I knew before the conversation started. When we are embarking on a conversation such as religion, or such as religion, just because we're in the system of racism, white supremacy, and we are victims of it, whether we choose to believe that or not, I'm not really interested in beliefs. I'm sure y'all can tell that by now. But the evidence shows that we're victims of it. We should not be emotional with each other. Now, of course, it is easy for me to sit here on this screen, on this Zoom screen, and say to these individuals that I see and some that I don't see, but I'm sure look like me, it is easy for me to say, don't be emotional. It's 100 times harder to do it. And I'm telling you this because I fail at it every day. Even when I think I did my absolute best, I fail. And the reason why, the evidence of that is forgetting, getting stressed, even getting angry. Even something as simple as anger. And I even said earlier, being overly happy. When I'm overly happy, I miss things. Emotions, a lot of us were brought up to believe that, oh, you can't fault me because of my feelings. Everything that we have been taught, everything that we have been taught, our parents have been taught, our parents' parents have been taught. It's totally, totally, totally backwards. Not because our parents are backwards people, not because we are backwards people, but because this system is designed to keep us totally backwards. So much backwards in a way that now it's affecting our spirituality. And it's affecting our spirituality in such a way that because we can't see what's spiritual, we hold the belief more valuable than our spirit. And even me just saying those words right now that's just so crazy to me, because the evidence of my spirit, I just told you earlier, is me sitting here speaking to you. The evidence to you that your spirit, that a spirit exists, is you listening to me right now. I don't even have to be in physical contact with Brother Rashiki, but I know that his spirit is communicating with me every time that I ask a question. Same with Dr. Alman Ra. Same with my wife. Same with my son. We have all this evidence of the very thing that we can't see with our naked eye, because we can't see our spirit. If our spirit wasn't trapped in the skin, we wouldn't be any evidence to our physical eye that even exists. But we will totally ignore our spirit and our spirituality for something called a belief that you have no evidence even exists. Now, if that is not a mental impairment, I ask, what is it? When you come up with the answer, I don't even, I would beg for an explanation and explain it to me like I was a 2-year-old. Make it so simple that I can understand it, because what I just said to you about spirituality, I think I just made that as simple as I just explained that to my 5-year-old. And she understands that she is a spirit, and she understands the evidence of that. All she has to do is look in the mirror and look at herself. That's the evidence of a spirit. What it is not evidence of is a religion. So when I say when I suggest, because everything that I say is a suggestion, brothers and sisters on the line tonight. Everything that I'm saying tonight is just a suggestion, okay? But when I make the suggestion of leaving religion at the door, when you're having a discussion about anything, I don't even care if it's about bread and butter. Religion shouldn't even come into play. It shouldn't even come in the conversation, especially not while we're in a system of racism, white supremacy that governs and controls that very thing that we call our religion. With that suggestion, when we are taking the time out to observe nature, or when I'm mentioning this thing about observing nature, that is part of your spiritual mission. That's supposed to be part of your everyday action. So just think about how many times you actually had a moment from paying bills, paying gas and electric, paying the babysitter, going to work, having to go to the market, having to watch a favorite show. Think about how many times you actually took time out of your life since you've been born to actually sit in the middle of the grass and just pay attention to nature. Because I can tell you, just from my personal standpoint, I'm 46 years old. Out of all my life, all the time that I can remember, and I probably can remember a good 40 years of those 46. Might not in all detail, but I can remember some times. I could remember sometimes I had sitting in the park. In all my 46 years, I couldn't even add up a whole week of just sitting in the park observing nature. So think about how behind the ball we are to observing the very thing that we come from, that we exist in. You can't say that oh yeah, I got a relationship with my creator, or as people would like to say, like Christians would like to say, or any other religion. You know, I have a relationship with my God. You can't tell me about my relationship with God. And I say, well, I can tell your relationship with God because all I can do is look at you and tell your relationship with nature. You know, if your relationship with nature ain't right, your relationship with any netta is not going to be correct because you don't even you have no understanding of creation and copying. You know, but the spiritual work that we got to do shows is a direct link to our health. Now, why would Brother Mooco say that? Nature shows me every day, nature shows me health. What is health? Health is life, right? Nature shows me life every day. Nature also shows me death. But the one thing that it shows me about life is this. When you're living in this existence that we live in right now, and you can just look outside your window and see something such as life that is evident in yourself because you yourself is alive. And this is very important. But you can't look at that very same thing that you put on the same level as life, such as religion. You can't look at that same thing and see the evidence of it. That logically should, huh?
That's Brother Hendrick's dog chiming in. That's nature.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's nature. Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, when you look at when you can look and observe nature and see life in it, that same very thing which you can see in yourself, and you can't look at something like religion, which you put on the same level as something great as spirituality, nature, and you can't see the evidence of life in it like you see in yourself. That very point should make some type of logical sense to the individual that something is I should notice something about that. I should be paying attention to that. Me saying this is not saying that a person that hasn't come to that realization yet, or a person that's just coming to this realization now, that's not saying anything. I'm not saying anything insulting about that individual or those individuals. And that needs to be said because the very thing that we're talking about, emotions, this is the type of thing that when you're dealing with a conversation like this is where those emotions derive from. Because everyone wants to be right in their belief is the reason why we should never discuss our beliefs with each other. I don't like using the word belief. I really strongly try to not use it at all unless I'm having conversations like this, where I'm sharing information, or even with my children who I like to think I'm teaching logics to, or teaching them how to be logical. I rarely, I, I say that a lot, but I'm particularly saying it tonight because this day and age that we're living in right now, and how critical this is to our spiritual healing, growth, and knowledge, which we are so far behind in, we do have, all of us individually, but collectively too, our missions are interlinked. And if we don't get it together right now, while we're in this existence, while we're in the existence right now, if we don't get it together, and I mean us, who's on this line right now, and everybody that's connected to you, who you have privy of being an influence to, if we don't get this spiritual thing straight and separated, totally separated from religion, we may not exist again. It's that crucial. Observing the things in nature and what nature is telling you. I know it may sound vague to an individual or a person that has no real idea of how to separate or unpack what they have been taught about the particular religion that they may practice. But what I say to that, and I know I'm gonna sound like a tape recorder, but I do this unapologetically. I stress to my family that I love, you must stay focused and like laser beam focused on the system that controls and governs our activity in this life, so that we can get back on track with what our ancestors already put in place. There's a reason why you hide information, and it's also a reason why you put a bunch of misinformation out. That's not by mistake. When something is designed to make you walk in a circle like a maze. That's not by mistake. Especially when you have evidence of everything in existence right in front of your face, and you don't pay attention to it. That's not a mistake. That's something that's deliberate. That's something that's done on purpose. So what I suggest to all my family tonight is just really strive to do things different. This is not going to be easy. I'm not asking you to do anything easy. Hell, what I'm asking you to do is hella hard. It might be the hardest thing you ever did in your life. And I'm suggesting, but I'm asking. I'm begging. That's what I'm doing. I'm really begging, because I already asked more than once. So, according to the code, when you ask more than once, you begging. So I'm begging y'all on this line to pay attention to your spirit, pay attention to your nature. And when you're paying attention to your nature, don't be talking. Hell, don't even let nobody talk to you. Try to be alone when you're doing this. Even bring a pen and a pad and take down notes, because that's what I did. That's how I even got to where I'm even having this discussion with y'all. Observe. I'm begging y'all to observe nature and what it shows y'all, because right now, nature is showing us a lot of things because the earth is going through something. And I said a statement earlier when I said that everything that's going on with you health-wise, I don't care who you are, and I probably don't know you on this line. And when I say I don't care who you are, that's just simply meaning I don't care what your first and last name is. It's not saying I don't care about you. I'm on this line, so I care about all of you. But when I said earlier that everything that is going on with you, me, any individual on this planet of tar or earth, what you call it, anything that's going on with you health-wise is directly linked to your spirit. Whether it be high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, or any other disease these, people claim to name or name the claim or whatever. All of these discrepancies are direct links to what you're not doing spiritually. I don't care if you're going to the mosque 20 times a week, praying to Allah. I don't care if you're going to synagogue, you know what I'm saying, up here on Park Heights and Glen Avenue, up here in Baltimore, praying to Jehovah and reading your Torah. I don't care if you're one of these Afghanis over here going to the Hindu mosque, whatever. I don't care what religion you practice. If you're going through an illness, the only thing that's going to get that illness right or get you cured is by understanding what's not going on with you spiritually. Your ancestors trying to tell you something, and that's the first. Your relatives who passed away, another thing that nature shows me. Nature shows me, I said nature showed me life and it showed me death. Real quick, when I was young, when I was a younger boy, the first house I remember that I was born into, we had a tree. My father named that tree. I thought it was the weirdest thing, but he named the tree. We cut the tree down. No, it didn't get cut down. Hurricane Gloria in the 80s came, uprooted the tree, took the tree away. My father named that tree Andy after Andy Griffin, because he hated that show. And every time I used to be like, wow, look at old Andy, he's stumped now. I knew Andy existed because I seen that tree. You know what I'm saying? I grew up with that tree in my yard for how many ever years I lived in that house. In actual respect, after Andy got ripped out of the roots, ripped out of the ground, Andy was an ancestor, even though I know it was a tree. I'm just making it simple. Andy was an ancestor then, you know. All your ancestors, even if you didn't know the relatives, meaning even if you weren't in this existence when that relative existed, okay? Like, you know your mother's, you might know your mother's mother, but you might not know your grandmother's mother, okay? Or her mother, but it don't mean that she didn't exist, right? So she's an ancestor, right? So that's the room that I just put the tree in, Andy, because I knew the tree existed. When we talk about ancestors and they're not here and we can't see them, but we know we have evidence that they existed, the thing that makes that important is the very thing of evidence. When you are confused into a belief, evidence is no longer needed. And when evidence isn't needed, there's no possible way. Without evidence, there's no possible way to know. It's no possible way to know. Because even if I committed a crime and I told you, yeah, I committed the crime, me telling you I committed the crime is that information that's letting you know. So you don't have to believe it. Now, even if I decide to lie and say that I did something that I didn't do, I would still have to produce some type of evidence. Or I wouldn't have to produce it. It would still be some type of evidence that exists to support what it is that I'm saying. And this is what makes religion so important. It makes religion so important because religion has no evidence. And even the evidence that it presents is very, very, as Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben said, you know, but I can't put it no better than them, is the poorest carbon copy of evidence that you could ever come up with. And when you are observing nature, that evidence is so vibrant and so in your face that it's no way that you can refute it. Like the mere point of nature showing you life and death. You can't refute that. You know, you can't even argue it, even if you wanted to. Couldn't argue that because it's right in your face. Go right outside. You see a tree die, you see a tree live, you know, grow every day. You see flowers die, flowers grow. You kill ants and they back the next day, roaches too. That's nature. That's spirituality. As crazy as it may sound, it is definitely going on all around us every day. And it's the simplest thing, but it's so complicated because we aren't creators. And I know that sounds crazy because for that reason, it's so simple, but we can make it so complicated. That's what I meant to say. I think that's a better way of saying it. It is very simple. Life is simple, but we complicate it. We complicate it because we allow our emotions. We allow our emotions to confuse us. And what I mean by that is we allow our emotions to get us into not thinking. I like to call it the art of not thinking. Writing a book about that, but yeah, the art of not thinking. We have that down pat. Me too, but we have that down pat. We mastered as a people, as individuals, trapped in this USA thing that we call home. Yeah, we are definitely trapped and by confusion, by our own confusion. And the only way that we can get out of it is by using these intelligences that the universe or the creator, or for the sake of conversation, we have to get, we don't have to get, it's a must that we get better. Everything that I said tonight, I think the most important to all of us, and is our health. I said earlier that paying attention to your health or anything that's going on with your health is a direct link to your spirituality, or something not going on with your spirit, something going wrong with your spirit or in your bloodline. I know that might sound confusing to a person that's going through a health impairment or situation right now. But what I can say to that is the fact that one person may be suffering from the same ailments as another person. The person might not connect their health to what's going on with their spirituality, something that they can't see with their naked eye, but they clearly know exists. And I think religion is deliberately thrown in as a diversion for us not to concentrate on even getting our body's health intact. But simple things like paying attention, simple things like hot and cold, wet and dry. Hot and cold, wet and dry. Vibrations, those things that I just mentioned, our ancestors knew and already had things in place that monitored those things in our body without any of the machines that we have today. And they still, the offspring of those ancestors who are privy to those practices still do them to this day. They still practice them to this day. And they still work. And that's evidence that a lot of this work that we think that we have to do, or a lot of these truths that we're searching for, our ancestors already did the work of figuring these things out, observing nature and getting the answers from nature on these different topics. And we constantly ignore them and look past them as if we're going to find a better or new improved answer. A fine example of that is what's going on with this vaccine now. Oh, excuse me. Man. This whole health situation now. The fact that when we already got the answer to something, but yeah, we already got the answer to something, but we search past that answer as if that answer isn't an answer. We do that in every area of our existence. And the fact that we do that in every area of our existence, it depletes us every time we do it individually, but it depletes us as a collective as well, probably even worse. But individually it depletes us, but as a collective, it really depletes us, because when I'm doing it and you're doing it and he's doing it and she's doing it, it then becomes like a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? Like it becomes a pandemic of people doing the wrong action. You know what I'm saying? So like if everybody is supposed to be walking up to the corner and turning left to get to the destination, but you had people ignoring that correct way, that correct route, and going a whole totally opposite direction of that route, that right route. And in hopes of finding a better destination. Or no, in hopes of finding the same destination. That is backwards. And that's what we're doing when we put religion and spirituality in the same house. That's what we're doing. We already got the answer to spirituality and the whole nine, but instead We go religion and go a whole different around the whole. We dance around the whole answer, and then instead of at the end zoom honing in right to the answer, we go totally further away from it. And this is why this conversation needs to be had, not just with us on this platform, but we need to have these conversations with, we need to have this conversation or this lesson with the youngest minds in your family or your care units, my care unit, your care units, whether it be your grandson, your granddaughter, your son, your daughter. The youngest I have is 5, and every chance I get, I'm drilling her to pay attention to nature. You know, I'm drilling her to pay attention to her spirit, and I'm constantly teaching her and showing her and my sons what nature is showing them and what nature is not showing them.
Okay, Brother Mooco,
Yes.
we had a question that came into the chat. Do you want to address that?
Sure, let me see if I can get to the chat.
I can read it to you.
Sure, you can read.
It says, what do you recommend one to do to address adverse health issues?
One thing, well, I suggest a few things, but the most important thing I suggest is not, and this is going to be easier said. It's easy for me to say this. It's going to be super hard to do. Do not, or try not to, go the Western medicine route. That's and believe me, I know when I say this is a hard thing to do, but not go the westernized medicine route, because when you go to the hospital, the first thing that they're going to do is not tell you how to cure your situation, or in other words, they're not going to tell you how to make it not happen again. What they're going to do is manage it. So for adverse health issues, and I'm just assuming adverse, the individual means like diabetes, heart disease, things of that nature, cancer maybe.
Okay, they weren't specific.
Okay, well, even
Just
if,
said adverse health issues.
okay, well, you don't even have to be specific, but any one of those, any health issues, again, and I know this is going to sound vague, but pay attention to nature. Nature gives us medicines already. And again, because we live in this existence, we are taught to ignore them. And I'm going to tell you what those medicines are. They're called G-bombs. They're greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. I hate to sound like a tape recorder or so cliche, but what I'm saying is very, very valuable. I was diagnosed with breast cancer about, how many years ago was that, love? About 3 or 4 years ago. Very rare for men. but I had a lump in my chest about the size of a golf ball. And when this was told to me, when I went to the doctors, I let them cut it out, but I was told to do radiation, chemo, something like that. And it couldn't be anything but my ancestors, my father in particular, telling me, go to nature. So that's what I did. I went to a holistic doctor. I went to a couple of them. And the best advice is the advice that I just gave you. I was told, at first I was asked, do you want to rid yourself of the situation or do you just want to maintain it? And I thought that was the craziest thing that a doctor or an individual could ask another individual. But I told him I wanted to rid myself of it. So that advice that I just gave you, that's what I was given. And everybody that I've given that advice to, it has worked. So
Can you,
with that,
brother Mooco, can you said some of the ingredients. Can you be specific about what greens, what beans?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Specify it,
Yes.
please.
Specific. Yes, I can be. Specifically, the darker the green, the better. Don't cook your green. When you cook them, you cook all the nutrition out of them. Of course, times it's getting colder. Who wants to be eating a salad on a cold day? But if you notice, I said beans, soups, all these things are very, very good. But the greens like kale, collard, turnip greens, even mustard greens. First of all these greens are supposed to be eaten raw, okay? They're supposed to be eaten raw. And most of the time, because I don't even really like eating salad, I probably eat salad more than I've ever done in my life. But for the people that don't really necessarily, eating salad ain't your thing, incorporate them in smoothies. But you gotta get your greens. The dark greens are the best ones. That iceberg lettuce and stuff like that, that's not really dark green, that's no good. It's like junk food. It's like candy. It's like the candy of vegetables. Okay. But as far as like your beans are very important too, because a lot of people might have heard doctors say, I've even heard some of my family doctors that are relatives to me that have been coerced into the game, so to speak, tell me, oh, Mooco, you need meat. You need meat for the iron or the certain proteins in meat. And they are totally, totally wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong. A lot of these proteins that you get from meat, you get from your green vegetables, your green leafy vegetables like your kale, your turnips, your collards, and your mustard greens and all those. That's where you get those proteins from, because the meat, the cows, the fish that you eat, they get these proteins from the grass that they eat. That's why they got the poorest version of it. But we keep throwing it down our throats thinking that it's doing something good for us and it's hurting us more than it's doing good for you. So for your beans, you want the best bean, and I know a lot of people might know this from Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory, most healthiest, he's a really healthy guy. Navy beans, chickpeas, the garbanzo green beans, kidney beans, black beans, one of my favorite black beans. These beans are very high in proteins. You know what I'm saying? And the only reason I know this, I'm not a physician. Hell, I when I have went to the doctor's office in the hospital, I say these certain things to them, and they know these things. They are just. I went to the doctor one time, and I told the doctor, I said, "Well, I just learned that the best source of vitamin C is not in oranges. It's in garlic and it's in onions." And he looked at me, he said, well, yeah, it is. But I said, "Oh, what do you mean, but?" "Yeah, it is. That's the answer. Why you never told me that? Why did you tell me get some vitamin C pills and drink some orange juice?" Because this medical system is designed for us to fail. You know, it's designed for us to fail. So they'll never tell you this in your doctor's office. And if you do have a doctor in your doctor's office telling you this, you're lucky. But you also should listen and then not listen to the things they say after this. Because the things that's coming after this is going to be something called a prescription. And it's going to be a prescription of it ain't going to be no prescription of this. It's going to be a prescription of pills, high blood pressure pills. It's going to be insulin, all that crap that has so many side effects you can't even begin to even know or name them. Especially insulin. Everybody that's a diabetic on this line right now, if you take an insulin, you having a serious side effect from it because their body naturally produces insulin. And what they don't tell you about insulin is that insulin is so particular to a person that they can't even copy it. Your insulin is so patterned to you. It's just like your eyelashes. Brother Rashiki, do you know that I cannot use your eyelashes on my eyes? Because they won't protect my eyeballs. Because your eyelashes are directly and particularly designed for you. Even if we were identical twins, our eyelashes would not be the same. And this is why half our women walk around here blind with glasses. Why? Because they wear fake eyelashes, and the eyelashes don't match their body, so it's not protecting their eyes. And the first thing we should have all been taught in science is that your eyelashes protect your eyeballs. But we ain't taught that. We ain't taught simple stuff like that. We ain't taught that your nostril hairs protect you from colds and flus. We taught go get some Theraflu, go get some Tylenol, you know? But we're not taught these simple natural things. Onions and potatoes at the bottom of your feet, pull a fever out, pull all the toxins out of your body. You know what I'm saying? Drinking ginger mixed with a little bit of water and some cayenne pepper is a detox. That's one of the simplest detox you can make right in your daggone cabinet in your kitchen. And we not privy to that information, nor do these doctors. No offense to any doctors online, but they not even, most of them won't give you this information because of a paycheck. You know what I'm saying? And the ones that do give you this information, I love them, and I hope that they breed more like them. You know what I'm saying? To give this valuable information out. And so yeah, that's the best information I would give. And again, the next thing I would suggest is after you do those things, get some spiritual work done. You know what I'm saying? Get an earth reading. Find out what's going on with your deceased relatives. You know what I'm saying? Do some opening of the mouths for your dead relatives, your mothers, your fathers, so that you can start getting blessed on this end. You know what I'm saying? We got to start feeding our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? And paying attention to holy, paying attention to divine holy day and ancestral holy day. You know what I'm saying? We have to start paying attention to our spirituality and the things that nature don't show us, the things we don't see, because they are the very, very most important to our existence today. And if we die without getting this, we're going to be trapped like the ancestors that are pushing us together right now to have this conversation right now. Because this the ancestors at work. This ain't me or Brother Rashiki. This ain't, the ancestors brought me and Brother Rashiki together. And if y'all don't believe him, you just ask.
Hey, Brother Mooco.
Yes, sir.
Brother Mooco, it's we've been on hour and 37 minutes.
Okay.
Are you gonna go to the panel and let them chime in?
Yeah. I'm sorry if I do.
I know Professor Ra is dying to get some of this in.
Absolutely. The panel y'all can dive in. It's the last 30 minutes, so I was kind of right on cue. But
Okay,
I'm glad that individual asked about those health tips, because we all need to, we need to get what we putting in our body straight, but more so after we get that straight, it's still going to boil down to your spirituality and getting we can no longer ignore it. If you keep ignoring nature is going to get rid of it. And that's what's happening now. But
Brother
go ahead,
Mooco, before you go to the panel, because I'm gonna let you run the panel, I want to make this comment. My father is 88 years old, and he'd have been through 3 different cancers, and the radiation messed his body up. I could say that. But you know what keeps him going?
What's that?
It's his spirit. He didn't live through all of that, but his spirit is so strong, and he's so confident. Man, he's still around here scooting, but you could sit down and have a long, nice conversation with him, and his mind is right there. Strong spirit. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. So you could go ahead and do the panel work there, Brother Mooco.
That's heavy. Yeah, so anybody want to make comments, have questions?
You can go around the horn, Brother Mooco.
I'll try to get it short. I can't see everybody's name. Let me see.
You can't?
You can't? I got you. So
okay.
Yeah. So High 240. Is that Brother Henry?
Yeah, that's it. The name is Hembrick.
Oh, Hembrick. That's even better. I've never heard that name before. So that's a serious name, Hembrick.
Slave name, Germanic in nature, But anyway, everything you've been talking about, I've been talking the same, trying to get my people to see it. I be out there in nature all the time. I tell our people, that we need to commune with nature, communicate with it, and just sit there and observe and see what's happening. And, like I was telling people about crows, I water my lawn, sit back there, and that's my meditation time. And I see crows, which are black, and they're always together. They always got a couple of point crows, and then it's a big old flock, then they got a couple pulling up the rear, And that's what we need to be trying to do as black people. They're black too. So anyway, I talk about that. I do the herb stuff. I do the barley and all the time. As a matter of fact, I have a big organic garden in my backyard, so I'm watching nature all the time. And another patience, especially when I'm watching the come up. And out of all the things you say, you talk about all the herbs and beans and all that. Water is one of the most important things that we do not consume that causes a lot of our health issues.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely right.
You know, the religion thing, but you know, our communication with the ancestors is so important. Uh, and if you listen to them, they will talk. They will talk to you and tell you what you do that, don't do that. But you got to be listening. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, there's a couple of brothers. Matter of fact, the brother talked about the health thing. That's a friend of mine. I don't think he has a microphone on his computer, so he can't communicate. That's why he types it in the chat. And I'll be on it too about what to eat,
Okay.
walking. See, we have to attack this thing from mind, body, and spirit. Our minds get, in terms of dealing with the white supremacy, like you talked about, and all the aspects of that, and our bodies, putting the right stuff in it, and our spirit communicate. Sasha, get out of here. Excuse me, man. Another thing I want to say about these physicians, because my daughter is in medical school, and Brother Ross, she's not studying to be a surgeon. She's studying to be a holistic doctor. They call it osteopathic medicine. That's what she's into. And so, but let me say about these current doctors, which I found out a few years ago, up to 10 years ago, to become an MD, you didn't have to take any classes on nutrition. So a lot of them don't know it. And my daughter, she only had one class on it when she was an undergrad. But she gets a lot of that from home. And a lot of times they be on a subject like gout, which I had. And she thought, in class she shares, that her father has that and what he does for it. But the best thing I do for that is stay away from the stuff that causes it. But anyway, I'm not going to take up all the time, but I appreciate your presentation. And I'm all with you 1,000% what you're talking about. And keep on doing what you're doing, brother. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Brother Hembrick. I appreciate you and everyone else as well. Brother Amon Ra, got anything you want to add?
Oh no, I'm good. I see Dr. Palm. I think he'd like to chime in. I don't know.
I'll yield to Dr. Palm. Go ahead, Dr. Palm, if he's there.
Yeah, Professor, I don't think he has to do it on the chat thing. I don't think he has the stuff on his computer to talk like we're doing.
Well, what about Mashinda?
Yeah, brother Palm said correct. He said correct. But yeah, Brother Mashinda. Going on. Mashinda probably taking a little nap or something. But go ahead, Rob.
Well, appreciate what's been said, if I understand correctly. First of all, I want to say Asante Sana, Brother Mooco, right? How you pronounce it?
Mooco.
Mooco, Brother Mooco, for the excellent presentation and the wealth of knowledge that you shared with us as far as dealing with spirituality as well as nutrition and understanding the aspects of the best cure to most problems is prevention, as well as developing homeopathic remedies and therapeutics for all type of illnesses that you suggest. I just have a few questions concerning, as you said, nature and forgiveness, and when you say what's the end game when it comes to the difference between spirituality and religion? Most religions have an afterlife. And you suggest that we do have an afterlife. Could you say communicate with the ancestors?
Mhm.
Most religions tell you how, or you know, I don't know, but my point is that what is the end game for being more spiritual than religious, as far as, you know, they know, they feel they're gonna see all their relatives, and you know, one day when they die, you know, if it's Islam, you're gonna go to paradise. You know, the three major Western religions. I'm not talking about Hinduism or Buddhism, but I'm just talking about, you know, the three major Western religions. Like, people don't like Western medicine, and people have a tendency to be very anti-Western religion also. But what is the end game? I mean, if people do that, be more spiritual, what is the end game? And, you know, death and immortality, as John and BT be talking about in his book, African Religion and Philosophy. Go ahead. Well, that's one question.
Okay, well, I'll tackle that one first. The end game is to not just be more, not just, it's not about seeing your dead relatives or anything like that, because the end game is to understand that when you're talking about spirituality, death is totally different, has a totally different meaning than when you're speaking from a religious aspect. In spirituality, death is a part of a bigger process, and it's not an ending process. Whereas in all religions, the religions don't show you the spiritual process, which death is a part of.
Okay. All right. When you it seems as if when you suggest that people who may want to go to Africa or go to another country, most of them are recommended to get some type of shot or vaccine. So Africa is about malaria, testy fly. Some get it, some don't.
Yes.
But, you know, same thing with Western medicine that suggests taking flu shots and things of this nature. And we do have a regimen of mandatory shots, that vaccines that all of us as children had to go through to go to public schools, unless we got an exemption, religious or medical.
Right.
But for the most part, we are you suggesting that people should look for develop an understanding of how to get away from all vaccines?
Brother Amon-Ra, or Dr. Amon-Ra, that is a very profound question, first of all, that you're asking. Very brave. And I will answer that, first of all, by saying that's exactly one of the things that I'm suggesting as far as relating to vaccines. Vaccines in particular, because I have done extensive research on vaccines. I have my children, none of them have ever been vaccinated. Every year, I've taken my sons to school, even down to my youngest son now. I just registered him in a new school here in Towson, Maryland. Me and my wife took him to get registered. Oh, Mr. Mooco, he has to have shots. As soon as I brought that exempt form up there, they act as if they didn't just say to me those words that they just said. When my first son was born, who is 24 now, when they did that to me at his school, that made me very, very, very suspicious 24 years ago. I haven't had a vaccination in almost 30 years. Of course, I had to have one, just like you said. I was in the military. I went to Africa. They definitely, just like you said, they made me get a malaria shot. That was back in the 90s. Since my children have existed, they have not had chicken pox. They have not had mumps. They have not had nothing, not even as much as poison ivy. So to me, once I did extensive research on vaccines and seeing what was in all vaccines, I decided that I didn't want to partake in that. So yes, to answer your question, Brother Rock, I definitely suggest people just be more vigilant, be very, very much more aware. I'm gonna be loading some things up on the website, such as a vaccine act that they're trying to push right now. I've highlighted sections in the act that I feel like people like us should pay attention to very closely and scrutinize it with your best investigative eyes. And I've also researched and gathered up a few articles back in the 1800s and in the 1900s about vaccine wars, about them going door to door in Black neighborhoods with doctors and police officers, in some case military, forcing our people to get vaccinated. And these are things that have not been discussed since this pandemic has happened. Me, myself, I'm used to be very disappointed in people that look like me who didn't seem to have enough time to research, but in the last few years, I've been getting a lot better with my patience and my tolerance, because somebody tolerated me and had enough patience to help me, get to where I am. And I appreciate it for them. And for that, I have to be patient and tolerant as well. So to answer your question without going long, I know I am totally against that. And I implore people to just do more research. This system is designed to keep us confused. So, just really, really do more research and ask the right questions, because a lot of people say, oh, it's never a wrong question. But I always tell my children, look, it is a wrong question. The wrong question at the wrong time is the wrong question. So we have to be vigilant, using these two eyes and these two ears, and not talk and listen, so that we can know when the right time is to ask the right question. You know what I mean? So and I want to applaud you on that, because you asked the right question. Yes, that I'm definitely against that for Black people. For us.
The other is, you had mentioned leave religion at the door, which is very difficult for religious people.
Yes.
Well, what I'm asking you is that, from a standpoint of religious individuals who said God created nature and the universe, and your spirituality is a product of God. That's your aspect, as far as that's what they mean, Holy Ghost and Holy Spirit and all that type of stuff. What is the contrast between nature's spirituality and religious spirituality when people say that God created everything, the universe, and that includes all aspects of human composition, and that the greatest thing he created was humans and their machines, their heart, their brains, their liver, the kidney. I mean, it's a hell of a machine when you operate and open them up. But the point is that what is the difference between nature spirituality and religious spirituality, what they call spirituality, the religious people?
Another great question. And I can only try my best to explain this in such a way that you understand, and I think I can help. The difference or the contrast between the two. Religion teaches you, just like you said, God created everything, in existence, in this existence. And then you said, when you open up this instrument called the body, right? You got all these instruments, the heart, liver, and all that. Well, the contrast with spirituality is that spirituality shows us that one God could not have created nature, because nature is made up of 4 basic elements that we know of, right? It's matter, it's fire, it's water, and it's air, right? Me and you and every one of us that's human, that's of nature, we exist in these 4 elements, right? And spirituality shows us, and what spirituality shows us is that matter it's a God that created matter. And that God that created matter, that is that God's job, matter. And you have a God that created air. And that particular job for that particular God or netter is air. And then you got a netter that his whole existence is maintaining the harmony of this existence. Then, just like for those instruments that you were speaking on, your heart, your lungs, well, you have a netter that creates, that's just that netter's job. See, what I'm getting at is, when I say we people of nature and we pay attention to nature, what nature shows us, I cannot do Amin Ra's job. In other words, what I'm saying, Brother Mooco can never be Amin Ra, because it takes a certain order that makes up Amin Ra. And that order is not the particular order that makes up Brother Mooco. So, and I always explain it to my sons and my daughters this way when I'm explaining our family tree and our household duties. I'll say to my 14-year-old, I'll say to my 16-year-old that you cannot be your 10-year-old brother. You cannot do his job. You know what I'm saying? And he cannot do your job. In other words, you're 16. You already been 10. So you can't be 10 again and do 10 all over. you got to be 16. You got to do your position. Your brother has to do his position. You can't do his position. I can't even do his position because I'm dad. You know, I have a particular job I have to do that you can't do. Mommy can't do my job. I can't even do mommy's job. Okay. That particular order that I just explained to you by explaining your order, how I can't be you and you can't be me. This is how nature shows us about creation. See, if it was one God that created nature itself and everything in it, and you discount all of the other gods that have their positions, then I could be you, you could be me. And that's no way possibly true, is it?
I don't know, man. I mean, my position is that, you know, that's why I'm asking you, because when you say that nothing is created, because there's
No, I said we don't create it. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, I can understand we don't create rain, we don't create, even though they have rainmakers. People try to emulate nature. They try to plant trees, even though some trees grow naturally. They try to, you know, like Brother Hendrick said, he has his garden. You know, there are certain areas where fruits and nuts and all them grow naturally on the continent. You know, food gatherers. But my point is that I can understand that there's certain existences in the earth. We can't, humans haven't developed the ability to create a sun or a galaxy or create another earth where it's spinning, even though they're trying to create a satellite lifestyle. But my concern is that nature is, I mean, but people do create things that are for humans, like red light, green lights, freeways, you know, trains and airplanes, emulating nature. I mean, the first people that tried to fly like birds. You know, they jumped off rocks with wings and stuff like that.
Right, but even breaking up, I don't mean to cut you off because I wanted you to remember, but I wanted to just add to what you were saying. Even those things that you just mentioned, Brother Amara, even when those people were emulating birds, when they tried to make those planes, even those people that they're copying, you know, they're not creating anything. Even the ones that are trying to make the solar system or the satellite, like the planet, they are copying a model. They're copying from something. So they're not creating anything from nothing. We're going what you were saying.
Well, you know, they'll probably argue against that. But anyway, let me just ask this last question.
Okay.
Dr. Seeley, Dr. Gauss, Dick Gregory are the most well-known nutritionists.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they followed the protocol of nutrition and water and organic food. I mean, but they all made transitions. There are people that live on pork farms living longer than they did. You understand? I mean, there are people that smoke cigarettes and never got cancer.
Yep.
You understand? Cigars, chew tobacco, you know, back in the South.
Absolutely.
How do you contrast that aspect that we all got to make a transition? I know the quality of life is important. You know, if you deal with natural foods and natural that, more than likely you're not going to have illnesses and things of this nature. I understand that, but and you may be more energetic. You may have a longer sex life than most men or women. You may have a longer, your hair may stay without getting gray. You may have all your teeth at 100, you know. I mean, all that's a part of that natural thing. But
Right.
at the same time, you know, we all got to make a transition.
Absolutely.
And so some people say, you know what? I'm gonna eat what I want to eat, 'cause I'm gonna die anyway.
You're
I
right.
mean, how you deal with the contrast, because, you know, most natural food is, you know, you can find, I mean, it's like when you say eat kale raw, eat greens raw, you know, I know people that own raw, everything's raw. You know, I'm not, you know, but it's like drinking milk straight from the cow without it being homogenized. You know, people back in the South used to do that. You know, they make the house with cornbread and milk with cow milk.
Right.
Not that humans should be drinking animal milk, but the point
Exactly.
is, you
Exactly.
know, it's a challenge. But anyway, let you respond to some of that.
You brought up a lot of interesting points, like you always do. But the one thing that I can say is this: you are absolutely 100% correct. We all have to make a transition, but the importance of understanding that transition and the mission that that transition holds is almost more important than the transition itself. Like, if you don't know what needs to be done and how to prepare properly for the transition, then the transition isn't a transition. It's just it's an incomplete transition. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you try and make a deposit in the bank, and you got your mill in your hand, you got your stack in your hand. But when you go to that bank machine, you know, somewhere between your hand, putting it in the deposit slot and the ATM, something got mixed up, you know? So it was an incomplete transaction because your stack, it ain't in your hand no more, but it ain't in the account. So that's how we're doing when we make that transition without knowing all the proper things to put in place when we make that transition, to make it a complete transition, to see the evidence of it. Okay? And check this, to even recognize the evidence of it once the transition is made properly. See, a lot of us were here before and we don't even know that we were here before. But the before we were born, the people that died before we were born, they didn't properly prepare us to know when we were born back into this existence that, hey, you were already here before. And I'm on my way out. And I'm gonna be back too. And this is the reason, and this is how I know this. And when I'm gone, you might not understand this now, but when I'm gone, pay attention to this, this, and that, and it'll show you. You know, we didn't get that. We didn't get that passed down from our ancestors. And the evidence of that is, Brother Amun-Ra, I met you on this show, just like Brother Rashiki, right? I didn't know you before this. You know what I'm saying? I may have been privy to a couple of people that you're associated with, but I didn't know you personally, right, before this show. So if I didn't know you before, God damn, if I didn't know you before this show, and well, I forgot where I was going at with that. I'm sorry. But yeah, you're right. You have to make this transaction, and my whole point was, without getting all confused in that, you have to know you have to have, it's information that you have to know that has to be passed down in order to make that transition a proper transition. Yes, you're right. We all have to die. But if we don't know what we have to do and who we have to prepare before we die, then our dying is for nothing.
So,
Okay?
brother Mooco, so
Yes, sir.
what would be an example with like Dick Gregory? Did he properly prepare before he went by leaving all of this information to us, or did he make the proper transition?
Another good question. This is the thing about a transition, and when we talking spiritual, okay? Your spiritual transition, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but we're going to get deeper into it the next show when I come back. But to know if a person or individual properly made his transition solely depends on what he taught the individuals that is in his bloodline. Because for your transition to go complete, it's things that you have that has to be done in this existence after you transcend. So if you're not in this existence, if you're not part of this existence anymore, you can't be here to do those things. You know, I mentioned a certain couple things like opening of the mouth. When your relative dies, they don't automatically become an ancestor. You have to do a ritual called opening of the mouth, and it has to be done by a Dogon priest, a person that has been initiating, and that has this information that has been passed down to them from their ancestors. Okay? Work the ancestors already did that we that were born here aren't privy to, simply because of this system of racism, white supremacy, and how everything that we're taught backwards, from medicine to food, from sex to how to operate a vehicle, properly. We've been taught everything backwards. So to answer your question, brother Rashiki, the evidence of a brother like Dick Gregory or Dr. Sabi making a proper transcendence or transition, we outside of that circle, outside of that bloodline, would not know. And there's no way we could know unless we are privy to that family. You know what I'm saying? And privy to his knowledge of his spiritual knowledge. You know what I'm saying? His knowledge of spiritual energy. Because Dr. Sabi, yes, he was a healer. You feel me? He was a healer. But Dr. Sabi might not have known everything as far as spiritual wise. You know what I'm saying? Like most of our healers and Dogon priests, our Dogon priests, and I keep saying our, but Dogon priests are healers, okay? They're not like the priests you see up here in the Catholic Church or a pastor that you may see down here preaching at the pulpit. No, these priests master observing nature, and not just master it. Like when I say a Dogon priest, a Dogon priest could be born, and his sole job from his birth to the day of his death is to do earth readings. And that's what they do. That's what he lived. That's what he does from the day that he's born to the day that he dies. Now, what I'm saying to you, when I'm saying to you, we have to observe nature and pay attention. It's work that our ancestors already did. This work was already done before I was born. This work was already done before you and all of us were born. But if we weren't privy to the information, and we were raised on something totally false, and we have no idea that that information even exists, then we are totally blind to that. You know, to us, that's some whole Cinderella shit. You know what I'm saying? Like we wouldn't even, you'll be looking at me like, what are you talking about? I don't care what you saying. That's some old mythology stuff. Because when I start mentioning that we have more than one God, and it's a God that created this, like for instance, Dr. Amun Ra, do you know that in your name you have the name of two self-created gods? But if you weren't never taught that, you would be totally oblivious to it. Amen was the second created God in its existence. And Amen seen that matter, and he seen that matter and fire was on top of each other, and they kept swallowing each other. So the god named Amen, he created a god called Shu and a god called Tefnut. Okay? Tefnut is divine water. Shu is divine air. So Amen, who is the God that created those two gods, which is part of two of the four divine elements that I say we all exist in, that we are all made up of, you, me, all of us. He made those two and put them with divine matter and divine fire so that we could exist, so that we wouldn't keep swallowing, existence wouldn't keep swallowing itself. But if we weren't taught that, if we weren't taught to observe that in nature, we would look at somebody explaining that to us like, bruh, I don't know where the hell you got that from, but we not talking about that right now. You know what I'm saying? Like you would be totally oblivious to it. But the one thing that makes sense about what I just said to you is that when you sit down and you really analyze it, like when we have more time than we have now, you'll really start to see that, yo, that really makes sense. And it makes sense not because you're thinking about it in your head, not just that, but you're looking at it right outside your window. You're looking at it when you look at your hand. This is divine matter. This is divine matter. This is matter. I could touch it. I could break it. It's matter. So when you can see it and you don't have to search far, far and wide to prove it and bring it together like you bringing two hands together like I illustrated earlier, the evidence is overwhelming. So that's why I said going slow this way, we have to unpack it this way because of the way that we were taught this absolute wrong way. And Brother Amun Ra, every question you asked was profound because those are the type of questions that need to be asked, check this, without emotion. And that's what you illustrated tonight. You asked those questions without being emotional, without being upset, and everybody watching us tonight seen that. And guess what they're going to get from it? They're going to practice the same thing they seen you do. And that's the awesome part about it. Why? Because we are copiers. We are copiers. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to copy that, what you did tonight. And that's what we need to do. Because that's all we can do. We aren't creators. We can't even fathom what one day of being a creator looks like. We can't even fathom it.
Brother Mooco,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Palm said, nothing is something that you can't see.
Nothing is something that you can't see.
see. That's what Dr. Palm said.
Dr. Palm, I agree. And that sounds like something that a master teacher said to me one time before. He said, "There's no such thing as an empty place." There's no such thing as an empty space. That's what one of my master teachers told me. And when he said that, I was so confused. But I have to agree with you, Dr. Palmer. You're right. You're right. I agree. So, Dr. Amara, can you tell us what's coming up next on the Conscious Corner? You know, on your next, on you and Brother Hendricks.
Yeah,
next
we're
show.
We're going to be appreciate what you asked, if I understand correctly. And again, thank you for the wealth of knowledge that you share, information. We're going to be talking about Hades and what people can do to help the Haitians. We're going to probably mention some of the organizations that's there, what you can do to write to your congressperson or, you know, America has 4 territories, islands that they control. Out of 5 islands, they have 5, and out of 4 of them, they recognize them as citizens. They can't vote, and they don't have a congressional representative because they're people of color, and they don't want no senators like DC, you know. But the point is, they don't have to have a passport. I mean, to come back and forth to the United States, you know, and from the island. And we're going to talk about that. Why can't they send some of them Haitians to those islands? They did it before, back in the 70s. They sent them to Guantanamo Bay, but and wait for them to be processed. That's still in the United States territory. They're still in the United States, which is a requirement in order to be processed for what they would call a you know, protective status, temporary protective status, TPS, temporary protective status. And some people say, well, they don't want to move them. Well, they got to move them from up under the bridge anyway. And it's best to get them out of the hostile Texas anyway, because that wild governor there. But anyway, those are the things we'll be discussing with regards to Hades and the history, why Hades is still paying reparations to the French for their revolution. All of those things will be coming up. And as some say, the white people have never stopped punishing Hades for becoming the first Black independent state.
Right.
We're going to talk about them riding horses on the people and treating them like an infestation rather than human beings. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll be sure to tune in, definitely, and everybody else. Yeah. Be sure to tune in. Thank you. I'll see you.
Okay. Well, I guess we signing off, folks. Each one teach one. In Conscious Corner, looking forward to part 2, Brother Mooco.
All right. Next
week. I will be here 29th. I will definitely be here.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
No problem. Peace out.
He's gone.